Good evening, everybody, and welcome to WORLD, the legacy division here in the World Online Racing scene. Which I am back this week, and I'm joined by the guy that replaced me last week, Jota. Welcome along after such an incredible race last time out. You caught all the action. Oh, some reason, Jota, I have lost your audio. So. And I mean, Belgium, such a historic track. Spa-Francorchamps. I mean, I think other than Silverstone, I think most people know nearly every corner, every straight. I mean, you don't. I think really, Eau Rouge Radion Kemmel Straight might be more historic and more iconic than most of Silverstone. Now, as per WOR tradition, you are Ryan Jacobs for the evening, just so everyone out there can feel the full meme that is WOR this season. Very true, very, very true. But we do have to talk about one other man who is the GOAT, the greatest at the moment. You spoke, I know, at the end of the stream last week saying, you've commentated on Ronha, as like myself, and Ronha's gone on to do incredible things. And you've mentioned that you think Otis is that capable of doing exactly the same. And you know what? I think you're right. He is very, very capable of doing something incredibly special in this, in this esports side.
As well as having the mentality to be able to produce the standards that you'd expect from yourself. And Otis always seems to be the one that is just consistent on both grounds. So I think as he moves away from Xbox, he's certainly going to end up being one to watch as he approaches into the esports scene, because I think we're going to see a lot of graduates from Xbox suddenly really make their mark within the real Formula One, real life esports scene.
Now, just sorting out some teething problems. Usually, Legacy Division, all the audio is coming through the Xbox, but this time around, it's coming through the PC. So I've obviously maybe messed something incredibly wrong up. But at the moment, enough about that. Let's have a quick. I think you're back up and running now. Anyway, let's have a look at the calendar for the remainder of the season. Obviously, you've got Belgium tonight. This is where we're at. Then United States of America, and then we've got a little bit of a break, but. I mean, Belgium and States are two different, massively different tracks in my eyes. Do you feel that the people who are going to challenge Otis tonight aren't going to be necessarily the ones that are going to challenge in a week's time?
It really depends, to be honest with you, because if we take a look, it's not just WR Legacy Division. We've also got to take into account a lot of the other divisions as well across the Xbox platform. And if you're talking about sort of the nearest challenges, you've got to talk about maybe Paradox Sim Racing. They were at early part of this season the ones to watch throughout, all of the esports scene, as were Fury Racing Association. But as time has gone on, they've been struggling a little bit. And I think the person that's been the most consistent out of them all, just flat out, has been Otis. I've not really seen anyone else maintain the form that they're currently at. So I think it's going to be a very, very high bar for someone to put a challenge on Otis, because he's very consistent across all of the tracks, to say the least.
And I mean, the guys are out on track at the moment, but they're doing the whole intermediate run, so we won't give you the full action just yet, because as fun as it can be seeing some of these guys spin out on inters, let's just keep talking for the time being. And Let's go. Obviously, Otis doing the just the standout job at the moment, and you do wonder partly if FRA would have wrapped this up already had, and this is not like no disrespect to the teammates he's had this season, but if we look at, I think Pisty, who's only on 40 points, he's only had one podium. Matthews not had a podium. I can't think who else has raced for FRA this season. I think that could be it. But it's been dominated solely by the FRA's points by Otis Lawrence, and I think it really, if he wasn't there, it changes the whole dynamic of the series, because I mean, not only does PSR get better and get more points, Visceral, they've actually had a really solid season. And really, I mean, again, if there was no Otis, who do you think would be leading this right now?
FRA have been sort of leading the charge with Otis, and I'm not trying to claim that they are a one-man team, but if we take a look at other esports events that they're involved in, particularly one that I commentate on in the Paradox series, they're currently third in the championship at the moment, and they don't race Otis in that particular tournament. So you'd have to sort of look towards more consistency again in this sort of argument here. And the most consistent out of all of the teams that I'm seeing so far, especially this season, has been Visceral. They have been absolutely fantastic to watch, especially in qualifying. I don't know if this has been sort of similar in your case as you've been watching WRLD, but their qualifying times, no matter what drivers they field, always seem to be within thousandths of a second of each other. And that is just the very epitome of what you'd expect from Visceral, because they are fundamentally a team that always think about exactly what they want to do at every stage of the competition. So you'd have to argue that Visceral are probably the favourites for a tournament when you take out your world-leading drivers. Yeah, however, he is not prone to not making any mistakes, because the guy did make a mistake, and quite a big one actually, in Jeddah. I think I was on the race for that particular for that commentary event, but he was by far leading away for pole position, so he was really testing the car and seeing where he can push, and he binned it quite heavily going through, I believe it was turn 13 in Jeddah. And it was an awful incident, but he did crash out of qualifying as a result of that one. So, you've got to expect that even the leading drivers absolutely are still going to make those kind of mistakes. Now, Otis, thankfully, has got away with it, has returned back to the pit lane. His team are now going to be working on the car as they head through into Q1, and all the drivers initially setting their lap times, with Pat Leger obviously being the only driver setting a lap time so far. But, I can't help but feel that it will knock one's confidence if they spin out even on a slow lap, because they think, oh, I thought I would have had grip there, but now I don't. And that may see him hesitating around the corner where he spun. Yeah, and I think this is where we were sort of expecting, to be honest with you. But I think this gives us a very sort of slick segue to sort of talk about strategy here, because for the first time in WRLD, as far as I'm aware, anyway, the latest update now allows the drivers to select a preset on what tires they want to use, which gives them the option to eliminate a set of soft tires and have a set of mediums to hand, which they can use in the race, which two stops mean now that they are absolutely possible. So, I'm expecting an influx of soft tires to be used through Q2, but we have seen a few medium tires go on. I think Pisty initially setting that lap time, that 47.7 on a set of mediums, indicates to me that he wants to use an extra set of softs somewhere, potentially for a two-stop strategy. So FRA are going to have to sort of bear in mind here that that certain teams are already going to be making certain questions on what they're going to do strategy-wise at this point of the qualifying session.
Now, we are on board with VSR Finn. Sorry, just to direct away, as I was just trying to mute Mike for... there is an awful lot of fireworks going on outside my house right now. Anyone would think it's fireworks night tomorrow. But VSR Finn been very, very solid in some races this season, and also in WR Tier 1. But he's like a nearly man at the moment. And it's not always been his race. He seems to get himself, not his fault, but he just seems to be in incidents, unfortunately. Choco, his teammates, takes provisional pole at the moment, 4/10 quicker, well, 3.5 tenths quicker than his teammate Finn, who has put himself P2.
Yeah, not bad lap time actually coming in from Choco there. So VSR obviously flying high at the moment. Scyther though for PSR coming across the line with a 43.0. His teammate Sav, as you rightfully point out, another driver that has been sort of slowly but surely building his pace throughout the season. He's now just heading off of the straight now, as he's just keeping it nice and tidy to set his first lap times. So we are going to be expecting VSR and PSR certainly to be within touching distance rather of their own drivers, because they're going to want to make sure that they try and keep that consistency heading through qualifying. And of course, there'll be no doxing confidence if a certain driver is slower than the other one. Big shout out to ETA Andrea though. That 43.8 is a very, very impressive lap time for Euro Titans. They're going to be very, very sort of happy in the knowledge that they could be in it for some good points tonight.
And that's something they do need, is some points behind them. I mean, looking at them, Euro Titans only have a very bare minimum at the moment, 13, 2 points behind ET8, who have come into the sport a little bit late. And at the moment, 4, 5 races they've missed, and they're doing really well to be up into 11th, outside obviously the top 10s at the moment. Very close to Novus, as expert Almond into the pits for him, and on the subject of Novus. But some of these teams that have come in late have performed well, and one of those is BRT, and I'm very fond of those guys for no reason at all. They come in late and they've just tried to fight whoever they can, and that's great to see. We've got FRT Tom, who's just at a 1:43.7, and obviously there's a few drivers who have yet to set a lap time, but we are starting to see a picture of how Q1 is going to look.
Yeah, starting to see that one, but we've still got a few laps coming in. One of those from Shazoo's Venom. He's currently down in 19th at the moment and just coming into the pit lane. Hasn't set a lap time, has Venom. He's one of those drivers that has been really, really quick, but his consistency has been a little bit on the downside. So that will be something that he'll be keen to improve on as, of course, we approach the mid part of this game cycle. He is ultimately a very quick driver, but also quite aggressive. It's been in a few incidents around, not just in the Paradox, not just within WRLD, but of course across other events, not just in general league racing, the Paradox series and so forth. So he'll be looking to just get that consistency together and really build something, and hopefully he can set himself a lap for Team Shazoo. And of course, BRT, as you rightfully point out, Justin's still yet to set a lap. He's just about to start one in the McLaren.
Yeah, we will keep an eye on BRT Justin. Sorry, you've said his name and I'm just desperate to think it was GGYT Magician for some unknown reason. But I am on board with Keva for ERL. He's coming through, and he's been a bit I don't want to say hit and miss, but been a bit just towards the end. and that's a bit harsh to say on my side. But he's shown some good pace and some good racecraft, which is probably why he's here, to be honest. And that's, you know, I mean, this is the reason why the legacy division is a thing to showcase drivers that you wouldn't normally get to see out on track as well.
I think what your comments though about sort of Kev I think are perfectly sort of aligned with ERL in general, to be honest with you. And you know, again, not trying to be you know, nasty towards the team, because I've got a lot of respect for the ERL team and of course the history that they have. But there's no sort of shadowing away from the fact that they have not been the most consistent team out there so far. They have been struggling and they're trying to rebound a little bit now with their team. And to be fair, as you rightfully pointed out, the racecraft from the ERL drivers has typically been very good, and it's been very interesting to watch them race with the midfield team. Kevar coming across the line with that 1:43.9 though, puts him within safe-ish distance of getting through to Q2, but he needs to find a little bit more pace if he wants to get through to Q3.
Yeah, it's teetering, but with the likes of especially Venom and Justin to go, Otis Lawrence has decided a 1:43 is safe. A 1:43.1, sorry, is safe, and I would be pretty astounded if that was beaten, to be honest, by everyone yet to go out. Again, Harv on an outlap, Andrea on an outlap, Halo F1 is on outlap as well. So Justin is going for another lap on those softs because he's obviously made a mistake somewhere, because a 1:56 is quite a slow lap time. That's an intermediate lap time, to be perfectly honest. Let's see if he can do better this time around. With 2 minutes 30 remaining of the session, he's not given himself much chance.
Yeah, not really. I'm just keeping an eye out and see how his lap is performing, as he's now just heading up Eau Rouge into Radion, and he's been a little bit hesitant with steering going through bus stops, so he's clearly not particularly happy with the balance of the car at the moment, is the sort of vibe I'm getting. But it's a very low downforce setup, because he's already in the top end of 8th gear halfway down the straight, so he's clearly sort of trying to sort of use the pace of the car and using the lack of downforce as his way to gain time. Of course, he would then lose it round corners such as here, Brooks High, as he heads into No Name. It's going to be a particularly interesting scenario here. And there you can see the rear's now just steps out and he spun the car. So he's struggling at the moment with, I think, a lower downforce setup that BRT may or may not have forced upon him.
Now, and that is problematic, because it will mean he's out of Q1 at this stage, because I mean, even if he's able to get to the start-finish line, which he should be able to, those tyres are old now, because it's a longer track, it's harder wearing, and he's really struggling. Look at that, he's really struggling on his back end. I'm probably going to have to go on board with someone who is actually going to set a lap time, because it feels like he isn't. Pisty is about to set a lap time. He's had a try on his mediums, and he's going to... Oh, is he just about to start a lap time, actually? I think Pisty's just about to start. Halo's just about to start. Actually, let's stay with Mercedes of Pisty. A very good driver in his own right, but when you've got... we spoke about earlier about how FRA is, seeming like a one-trick pony, but maybe the other drivers in their team, when you've got a teammate of Otis Lawrence's caliber, maybe that puts extra pressure on you, and that's why they struggle.
Potentially. I think they've got drivers such as Pisty, though, who is a very level-headed driver. He won the WOR, I think it was the Tier 2 championship in Season 10, if I remember correctly. And he absolutely deserved that title because he was flying high. And, this is a person who's already shown his pace, has already shown his consistency, and already shown that he's a driver that can be sort of decided upon himself. He is a driver that runs his own races, and he doesn't find any pressure racing alongside Otis, which is probably the reason why FRA have fielded these two drivers the most this season, because Pisty's not really under that much pressure to battle with the likes of Otis. He just wants to get as many points as he can for the team, which he knows at the end of it, he's a little bit of a wingman in this particular tournament, but when he's in a different tournament, he can be the leading driver.
So he's just coming through Stavelot, and Blanchemont into he comes this time, and obviously Pisty's this is his one shot to get himself in. Venom goes pole provisionally by an agonising close margin to Choco, which has pushed Pisty further in. He's got to make sure this lap is a good one. It's looking good. It could very well take a top 5. It is a top 5 for him. Justin's obviously struggled majorly there, and looking in the chat, apparently his sound fell out mid-lap, and that's why he spun. That's not ideal for him at all. It's only down to Maris to save himself now. We've got 4 of the bottom 5 that have finished. They are not going any quicker. Pat Ledger, unfortunately, is one of those. Almond has left the session for some unknown reason as well. I hope it's all good there. FRT Tomlin is on a lap as well. I think it's just ahead of WR Maris. But we're going to stay on board with Maris to see if he can get himself out of this drop zone. He's agonisingly close at the moment. 0.2 of a second was all he needs. And he's gone a bit deep into the second to last corner there. That might have just cost him.
Yeah, quite. He's going to come across the line in the end with a time that is just well off of the pace and stays in 18th place. So Euro Titans have lost one driver in Maris, but their other driver, Andrea, just managing to sneak through by 56 thousandths of a second to FGE Patlasia. ERL Kevar also out, and BRT Justin not able to set a representative lap time for Bunga Racing Team, and Novus's Expert Almond out because he couldn't set a lap time at all. It was invalid on his final attempt.
And that is, that's the beauty, but also the beast of this track as well, because drivers will and have and will continue to do is illegal blocking, 5-place grid penalty for HGE Halo under the checkered flag. So that's an interesting one. Codemaster's giving us some incredible bugs this year. We will just go down and just remind you of the drivers that have dropped out of Q1, and that is Pat Ledger, Kevar, Maris, Justin, and Expert Almond there. And not an ideal weekend for those guys, Jota. And, especially, I'd say especially BRT Justin, but both him and Almond really unable to get something together. And as I was saying before that 5-second penalty came in, the track, you can corner cut or you can get penalties quite easily, which can cost, well, in qualifying definitely can cost you big time.
Absolutely, but it's also about those little margins in qualifying as well, because the whole of the drivers that were in that top 15 were separated by 0.875 seconds, within a second between all 15 drivers that managed to qualify. So those little fine margins are going to be incredibly important. I'm certainly looking forward to seeing what we've got in Q2 coming up, because there may be, just maybe, some drivers that elect to go onto that medium tyre and that initial stint, maybe just so they can save a pair of softs, and that might just choose their strategy.
It might very well. A very, very good point. I haven't seen anything about rain in the chat or in any chat, because I'd love a little bit of rain just to continue to spice up the Spa track or the race tonight, and that's exactly what we want. But I'm sure the guys out there will be more than capable of giving us plenty of spice tonight. I think we're going to see the drivers back out on track very, very shortly. Actually, they are already streaming out on track, so let's get back over to the action and see what I think is going to be. PSR Sav is going to be the first one to set a lap time if all things are right, and at the moment no one's deciding to go onto that set of mediums to just set a banker in. That's
can't help but feel that they're coming out though, Warder, that they are leaving at the moment because their rain may be falling soon, because the conditions out there look very, very grey, and with all of those drivers leave on outlap immediately would suggest to me that they're in a panic to get out there and get a lap done quickly, because they know the track is going to deteriorate. Like I said, we have no information about whether there is going to be any rain, but if there is going to be some rain, the behaviour of the drivers suggests it's imminent.
Yeah, it's quite interesting to see everyone come out, and I think maybe FGE Halo F1 has been caught a little bit napping, because maybe he's just gone to get a drink or something. We don't know. But everyone has flooded out of the pits straight away. Sav is going to be the one that sets a lap time first, but he has got Magician hounding him through the lap to set it. This is going to be interesting, because if it does rain, these guys have got... This has just turned all of a sudden into a one-shot qualifying.
Potentially, and the thing is as well is that the only person who's made the biggest mistake out there, you have to say, has actually been Otis Lawrence. He spun out in Q1. So if he ends up being the driver that makes the mistake, you could see essentially the world champion being knocked out of Q2, and that will open so many doors and opportunities to all the drivers around. First driver to set a lap though will be PSR's Sav.
Yeah, let's see how this lap time goes for him. Into La Source and out of La Source and down the old start-finish straight back in the day, and we've had many of an incident here in real F1. We'll have many of an incident in the Legacy division to come, I am certain. It's pretty solid through Eau Rouge Radion. Into the Camel Straight he goes. That kick to the right now. DRS flat open, and he's using the middle of the track initially to get himself back over to the left. And that was the signal for rain that I know. The little bit of a glitch on the screen. Well, I wonder if all these drivers are if it's going to be enough for them before it gets a bit too greasy.
Well, I think the drivers that have sort of left immediately, that's PSR Sav, and you've got the McLaren, I think the Magician just tucking in behind the other PSR driver just in front of one of the Red Bulls as well. I believe that's Venom. Currently out there at the moment as well. And, oh no, pardon me, it wasn't Venom, it was Piccolo actually, who was just tucked in behind in front of VSR Finn. All of these drivers are going to set the initial lap times that are going to be blisteringly quick versus everyone else. The driver that's going to get caught out here, as you rightfully pointed out, unfortunately, is FGE Halo. He's been caught out big time by this little rain spell. And apparently, according to Jack Taylor in the chat, he's saying that he said Q1, that it was going to rain in about 30 minutes at the beginning of Q1, and that is 18 minutes of qualifying plus maybe around 2 minutes of exchange between the sessions. So it has come maybe a little bit earlier than the drivers had expected. But False Group Esports are the ones that have been caught out most out of anyone.
Not ideal for them at all. Sav is going to cross the line. It is raining now, and it's a 143 to beat. Otis Lawrence is in the middle of that pack. And it's not going to rain in the race, which is an interesting one as well. So these guys are going to full set up for dry. I am certain of it. Where is Otis Lawrence going to be? It's provisional bowl at the moment, and what a lap time from him. Really stamping authority. His teammate coming through the end of Blanchimont now and into the final chicane. And this is going to be big for FRA. They need both their drivers through into Q3. Is Pisty going to do it, or is it going to be too much wetness on the track and across the line? It's P10. He's in trouble.
He is in trouble as well. I'm just keeping an eye on seeing how Halo's performance is. He's just heading round through into the bus stop chicane now. He was having a little bit of a weirdness on the rear end, actually, going through the third sector. But he looks to keep it as nice and steady as he can. Will be able to keep it competitive. He's even gone faster than FRA Pisty. He's gone to 8th now. And Pisty in serious trouble as alongside Eurotitans Esports Andrea, who invalidated his lap and has got nothing on the board.
Now, I'm in a little bit of shock here because in my eyes, this is it. This is a one-shot quali. I don't think we're going to see dry again in this session. And, well, it's great news if you're Venom, Choco, Otis, Sav, Finn, even Magician, I think, and Cider. I think they're safe. But look how close Magician and Cider's time are. That's ridiculously close. And Sav and Finn as well. And Choco and Venom. These guys are... There's so many drivers that are just millimeters away from each other. It's great to see.
Yeah, no, great to see. At the moment, we've got 0.003 of a second separating Choco from Venom, and then you've got something like in fact, no, less than that, actually, about 0.005 of a second separating Sav from Finn, and then 3,000 between Magician and Cypher. So they've really, really worked the hardest here, and it looks like Eurotitans Esports is getting a little bit of a tow from one of the Alfa Romeos there, which is not going to help their case because they're actually out in the drop zone at the moment. But ETA Andrea will now come across the line to set his first provisional lap time, and unfortunately, he's 2.2 seconds down from Otis Lawrence and well off the pace, 0.8 of a second down on Amine. I have a feeling that invalid lap has cost him big time.
Yeah, I think, such a shame for him. It was definitely not going to work on the second run there, and showed promise in that first run as well. I know he was 15th and only just scraped through, but that was his first lap time he sent. So, it looked like he could progress, but now he's got to fight through the field and get some, and hope for the best, really, because I can't imagine it getting any drier. And these guys it's happened in the past here in the Legacy division where they've decided to get some intermediate running in to just get a feel for the track and continue practicing. But I can't see it going any other way than these top 10 going through right now.
To semi-quote a certain individual that races in the Alpine, actually, if you're 10 to 15 seconds a lap slower, then you're just going out for nothing. And I think Andrea, at this point, is just going to have to consign himself to the idea that he's going to be starting P15. And, of course, depending on where Halo finishes off as well, because I believe he has got that 5-place grid penalty for blocking a driver whilst he was apparently an AI, but there's Codemasters out there finest once again. Nonetheless, Andrea being in 15th place, I think he's just going to consign himself to that situation and sort of call it quits, come into the pit lane and just let the 7 minutes elapse. A couple of drivers decided they want to get out there. Of course, FRA Pisty is the FRA driver that is at serious risk of being knocked out of Q2 here. He did not get a good lap time in, and he is having another go at this one, but the track conditions are getting incredibly slippy. I don't expect any hot laps coming in.
Yeah, him, Amin, and Venom have all come out, and it surprises me. Because, I mean, Pisty really doesn't have anything to lose, because this is probably his fresh set that he would have used in Q3. So, it's nothing to lose for him to try, but I can't see him. Not with this. It's too wet for him. I've not had the DRS disable sign come up, but I don't know if... Yeah, I don't see a reason to it, because he's struggling to perform at his best within the white lines and still be fast.
Can't quite see why Shazoo Venom's also gone out, though, because I think the likes of Pisty and Amine coming out, I don't blame them for FRA and for Novus, respectively. I don't blame them for coming out and at least trying to give it a go. For Venom, though, coming out in P3 in a track that is getting increasingly damp and will eventually be a track not suitable to the tyres that he's on is a bit of a gamble. I think it would be wise, and I think Shazoo would be wise, to call him in and say, get back in, sit down, and we'll wait for Q3.
Yeah, I think that's unless, well, by the looks of things, let's. It's the same set that he went out with, and he has gone back into the pit, so he's done exactly what you've suggested there. But let's see what Pisty can do. The Mercedes drivers, there's a lot of pressure on him, a lot of rain falling around him. The DRS is open. I just can't see this going any other way other than a mistake and causing himself a crash, or just not getting into that top 10.
Yeah, he's already down in the first sector by a considerable margin. I think in the second sector, especially as he's going to head through the likes of Puon and heading down the rest of the second sector, already a big snap of oversteer actually coming out of No Name. I'm really expecting here that he's going to be surely around about a second and a half down on his usual lap time at the very least, to say the least, as he's now just heading through the next selection of corners. He's going to mount the curbs, which is a bold call to make, because they're going to be the dampest part of the circuit first as he comes across the line in the sector 2, and he is going to be at least in fact, I take it completely back. He's actually down only a tenth and a half. So are the conditions out there stabilizing somewhat, or is it just that the track is so hot that the dampness on the circuit is almost evaporating pretty quickly? I wonder if that is going to be the case. We'll see what it does as he heads into the final couple of corners, of course, at the bus stop. And he's going to lose a little bit on the rear there, and he's very apprehensive getting on the gas. But he's already 3/10 down on his fastest lap, and I think that might just be it for Pisty.
I think that just proves that the track, while it doesn't matter how quick Pisty is, the wet weather is just going to force him into not being able to do it a lap time, unfortunately, and get himself into Q3. And I want to say it's a kind of a big name dropout going up from Q3, but at the I think it is. I think it's a big name. Pisty not being there in Q3 is quite big.
No, it's enormous. It's enormous sort of disappointment for FRA as well, because they could have ideally done with sort of Pisty in the mix, racing with the likes of ESR and Shazoo and PSR to dock them some points in this race. And now he's going to have to race from the back and try and fight out for points at the back of the field, and especially when you've got drivers, no disrespect, of course, to the likes of of FGE and so forth, but they're through to Q3, and ERL Dodo also through to Q3 as well as it stands. They're the ones that are going to be fighting for scraps of points. Pisty shouldn't be, so they're in a particular predicament here where they've got a very quick driver behind them. So it's going to be interesting to see how they develop their own races and how Pisty develops his, sort of going into the mid stage of this race as well.
So we do have another driver, Andrea, going out on a set of intermediates. I'm not 100% sure why, but Amin is also on a lap. He is back end is stepping out at the in the middle of 13. It's very, he's struggling to keep it on the track. He's 1.7 seconds down on his lap time, and that's just showing how wet it now is.
It's not time for intermediates just yet anyway, so I think it's a bit of a bad call for Andrea to come in. In fact, he's just left the session entirely now, so maybe he's disconnected from the session, or he's just taking the opportunity to just leave and maybe get some internal practice in for the race ahead. But yeah, it's definitely not time for intermediates just yet, but it's certainly not very comfortable on the softs either. And of course, now if the drivers all elect now to just call it quits, as we're seeing here, a lot of drivers are, the wetness and the dampness is going to start building on the circuit, which is going to make it intermediates quicker, as now all the drivers have retired. We're now going to have 2 minutes, and then a further 2 minutes added on between Q2 and Q3, which is only going to dampen the track, which may mean we're now into an intermediate Q3. Or are we going to see a rush of soft tyres out again? I wonder.
I would quite like to see if it goes to dry right at the end, but we'll wait and see. That is your positions at the moment, and the 5 drivers that drop out are Pisty, Harv, FRT, Tom, Amin, and Andrea. But we'll go back to our lovely faces again to see what will happen. I mean, at the moment, Otis Lawrence has set that lap time to... Do you think that from Otis, after the mistake he made, was a little bit of a flex of muscles to say to everyone, you know what, yeah, I've made one mistake, but you're not going to beat me tonight?
Not really. I think he knew he made the mistake, and it's not really going to be on his head to sort of make a message and make a stand to say, I made a mistake, but I'm going to be 6/10 ahead of everyone. The guy was the 7th or 8th car to set a lap time in increasingly damp conditions and still finish 6/10 in front of everyone else. He is a machine, to put it bluntly. The question is whether he can continue to replicate that in what is now intermediate tyre conditions. Choco is very adamant to start on the set of softs, though, whilst everyone else is leaving on inters by the looks of things.
So we'll go straight back to the action then, because these guys, we'll wait and see. Maybe Choco's deciding a scrubbed set. Let's have a look at that, actually. Is it going to be? It's not a scrub set, it's a fresh set. So that's what he thinks is right. Sav isn't the first guy out this time. It's his teammate this time around. And again, hounded by the BRT of Magician. Magician was desperate to get out first last time. Didn't get it right. And the Williams of Scyther is in front of him this time around. So, but you're right. Choco on a set of softs. That is going to be the most interesting one. Because if he thinks he can get something in wet conditions on the soft tyres quicker than these guys, that'll be interesting.
Well, considering there's no DRS out there at the moment either, I'm not expecting that he's going to be the quickest on the circuit. I think he's probably going to be the slowest by a long while. I'm just seeing as he's going through Brookside into No Name at the moment, and he's already missing apexes left, right, and centre. And I don't know if he's trying to find a dry line, but I'll be perfectly candid, there isn't one. So I think we are now in that. I think the best way to describe it is the Turkey 2020 conditions, where it's damp enough that the intermediates are probably going to be the best tyre to be on, but as the track dries up, is the track going to be so cold that maybe a dry tyre would not be sufficient if we were to get another crossover period? Because the track is, I'm just looking at the sky at the moment, brightening up again.
Yeah, and that might be, maybe that's what's going to happen. Maybe this is my wish of getting a dry end to qualifying, a frantic dry end to qualifying is going to happen. Magician slows down a little bit to allow Scyther a little bit of breathing room from behind. It will be interesting to see how it all pans out now, because It's intermediates for the time being, and Sider is going to be the man to set the first lap time. He's been pretty good in the wet everywhere in Tier 1 of WOR this season, so we will wait to see if he can transfer that over to the Legacy division as well. And as he comes through Eau Rouge and Radion and into the Camel Straight, he is harvesting a little bit, so I wonder if there is if he's thinking that this isn't the lap for him.
I love this guy. He's just an absolutely fantastic driver to watch as he's just going around every circuit, across the calendar. It's been absolutely fascinating to watch. And I've said, about a bunch of drivers, if we take Otis Lawrence out of the equation, who is the next driver? Who is the next driver that you may expect to be, leaving league racing and going into the esports scene, excuse me. Scyther absolutely is one of those drivers to consider in that mix, because him and alongside maybe the likes of Venom have been incredibly interesting drivers to watch, and I'm certainly looking forward to seeing what he's got for the rest of the season. Has he got the pace to be esports yet? Probably not, but I think if he keeps up with the rate of pace that he's sort of developing as a driver, come the end of the game cycle, he could be one to watch for F1 23.
And I mean, looking at drivers who've increased year on year on year, Harvey Cowan wasn't very often. It wasn't in WR Tier 1 for long, but then he was a challenger, and now he's signed with McLaren Shadow. So, and that's the route that these guys have got to take. Obviously, Ron Haar took it slightly differently, and it's worked out massively well for him. Let's see what Magician's validated his lap time, so he's not going to be happy with that. So is Sav. Let's go on board with Halo. He surprised us getting into Q3, so let's see if he can continue the surprising for now. But yeah, you're quite right. I think, Scyther is an incredible driver, and he's quite smart as well when it comes to interchangeable conditions. So definitely one to keep an eye on for the future. So. And this is the wonderful things for yourself and I. We get to see this talent on show before it becomes a real thing.
Absolutely. I'm just keeping a firm eye on Halo as he lifts ever so slightly, actually going through Blanchemont. He's going into the bus stop chicane now, and he's going to want to keep it nice and tidy and just try and set the initial lap time. Don't try and set blistering lap times. You're in a position where you really wouldn't expect him to be in Q3, and he certainly has set that sort of consistently but more conservative lap time of 1:51.8, so a little bit more time to find now, but at least he set the foundations running.
Yeah, and well, to be honest, he's one of 3 drivers who has been able to set a lap time. So that in itself is going to be good for him. Let's go on board with Magician. I'm sure this time around he might be looking at setting a decent lap time. And, back in the old days, we were expecting a 150 around Spa, but it's a lot quicker these days. Maybe even a 2-minute mark back. And there's Magician off the track at the end of Stavelot, and that is a no front wing for the McLaren driver. And he's got a lot of work to continue to do now. Let's go on board with PSR Sav, the Williams driver, teammate to Scyther. And let's see, through Blanchemont he goes into the old bus stop chicane. That's his next, the bus stop chicane in general now, that's his next challenge. And what can he do? Can he continue a decent run of form?
Certainly can try, because they're going to come across the line now. Sav, can he be alongside his teammate? Not on this occasion. That's 1:51.7, but the conditions may be still not particularly suited. Maybe the conditions are getting a little bit more damper out there. Otis, though, setting the initial lap time with a 49.6. I mean, it's just absolutely flying at the moment, is the world champion. Scyther with that 53, though, will be very, very happy indeed as he lines on the front row alongside Otis. He's now trying to maximise the amount of points that he can get as the RL Dodo comes across the line with that 58.3, but plenty of time to find in him. FG Halo, though, that 51.8, still faster than one of the Shizou drivers in 5th place at the moment. Of course, he'll be starting 10th as it stands with that 5-place grid penalty, unless, of course, there's a restart and that gets rescinded. But as it stands at the moment, Halo suddenly becoming a little bit of a dark horse for Fast Group Esports. They must be incredibly happy with that.
That is a very, very good lap time for him. Choco's slowed right down. Maybe it's maybe he's going back into the pits. Maybe he's trying to save some ERS. Couldn't say for certain, but we will be having a restart for this for this race, so that 5th-place grid penalty can be taken off Halo due to, well, being outside of the gate. Well, he wasn't even in control of his vehicle, and, well, it's a lovely little thing there. Magician's gone back out on a fresh set of intermediates. He's got the Ferrari of Choco hounding him behind him. I wonder how many laps these guys will be willing to risk on a set of intermediates with low fuel. I mean, I think everyone now is popping back into the pits, but they've got a lot of time. What is that? 0.3 of a second between Sider and Otis Lawrence. Otis has just, again, set the marker so high.
To answer your question very briefly on how many laps you reckon that these guys would do on this fresh set of intermediate tyres, you probably expect at least 3 or 4 laps, no problem at all, because of course these are a lot more durable tyre compared to the dry compound. But to be honest with you, if we're not expecting any rain falling in the race, then it wouldn't surprise me if all the drivers just elect to put on a new set of intermediates for every time they come out anyway. So that would be the question. And big shout out to Millen Moss in the chat, by the way, who said Magician P1 right as he spun it into the wall. So fair play there, Millen.
Well, I've heard of commentators' curse, but maybe it's the
Ever heard of a chat curse before? Because I don't think I have.
No, it's new. It's a new one, but we've made it here at the Legacy Division. There you have it. Choco, big snap of the back end there, and that's not what he would have wanted. And that's catching a few people out, I've noticed, turn 15. Choco only has 2 minutes 53 to save his qualifying. And you know what, right now, I wouldn't be surprised if he dives into the pits, gets a fresh set of inters, and goes again, and that's exactly what he's going to do. Magician possibly is going to be the first driver to set a lap time. Well, the first of the final runners, I think, is the best way to describe it.
Yeah, perfectly fair. I think it's a fair, reasonable statement as well. With, and of course, those conditions up in the sky that I say were brightening up has now dulled into a very faint grey once again. So we're not expecting any changes of the conditions. However, that little brightness in the sky did allow for some of the rain to evaporate on the circuit. But now we're starting to see wet patches fall again here. So maybe, just maybe, we're not going to see the best lap times on this run either. Perhaps midway through Q3 was the best way to get your fastest lap time in. But Magician now just heading his way off of the straight now and heading through Lecombe as he now heads through to Brooks Iron, and of course turn 10, that right-hander. A lot of people make a mistake by taking too much curb, and I think that is just what Magician did, but he's taken a later apex to recover the time that he would have lost on that occasion as he heads through No Name and then through into Puon.
Yeah, this is gonna be well, it's make or break for him, because currently he's P9. I'm certain Finn will go quicker than he has. Choco's retired from the session. He didn't want to go back out. That is a very bold call from him. It's likely that he's going to start P10 with the way things are going, but neither here nor there. Sav's retired as well. That's very interesting from the two of them to do that. But if the game is anything to be believed, Magician at the moment is very well. He's looking quick. He's purple in sector 2. Oh, there we go. He's invalidated. That's the commentator's curse coming back out, and he's going to go again. I'm just going to see who could very well. He will be the driver to continue to watch, but Finn might not get out in time. Might not get around in time. But looking at what Jack said, Choco held Finn up in the pits.
I was just about to say that. I was watching it actually as Choco went in, and he went in at just the wrong time because he actually blocked Finn from leaving the pit lane and now might have just stopped his teammate from being able to set a lap. He's got 15 seconds as he's now heading around Blanchimont. I think he will have enough time, but only just to get a lap in. But it's a bit of a shocker there from Choco to come in, and he didn't have enough time to get in and change onto another tyres. It's 5, it's 4, 3, 2, 1, and he's going to come across the line with 1 second to spare to get a lap time in. So if you're on the dry tyres, he'd be absolutely leaving that one to perfection.
Wow. And talk about the pressure on him now as well. He's got to set a lap time. That is it. He's going to have pushed that car to the absolute limits to get it through. back on board then with the McLaren driver, he is really struggling through Pouon there, taking a little bit of a wider exit. Yeah, the pressure definitely getting to Magician. I see in the chat someone reckoned he would get a 151.2. Halo goes P2, and look how close he is to Otis Lawrence. FGE Halo, wow, that is setting something alight there. Dodo in P3 as well with a 150. These guys have got a little bit of pressure, but you know, when you said it was not rain, it was brightening up, we've not got any rain. It is getting quicker out there, and that could be why some of these drivers are performing better than we expected. But yeah, incredible. Your eyes deceive. Well, you thought they deceived you, but they didn't. Magician goes pole.
Absolutely unbelievable. Bunga Racing team have now managed to get themselves potentially pole position, but keep an eye out as Otis Lawrence goes even faster with that 48.2. PSR Scyther is trying to get around here as Piccolo goes on the front row. Scyther comes across the line. He then nabs the front row, and then you've got Venom who chooses to come straight into the pits. Who's this going to benefit the most? The driver that leaves at the very last second, and it is VSR Finn who did that one, as he now comes around bus stop chicane, and this is a real opportunity here for potentially the VSR to really get a good position. How good is it going to be? It's only P4 in the end, and I think that is a really missed opportunity from the silver lining of Choco blocking him from leaving the pit lane, who starts at the back. Uncharacteristic mistake from VSR that nearly turned out well for them.
Yeah, wow, that was interesting. And just imagine if he was on a set of softs at the end there. That could have really spiced things up a little bit. But Otis Lawrence on pole position. 0.7 of a second clear of Scyther. In third is the Shazoo racing team of Piccolo. He's in third. That's great for him. With no Leopard this week, they needed someone to step up. He stepped up. Venom's in P8 as well. That's great to see. Finn in fourth. Magician in fifth. Held pole very briefly. Halo in sixth. Seventh is Doto. As I said, Venom in eighth. Ninth is Sav and Choco, rounding out the top 10. Wow, that was a very... I mean, I say I got what I wanted with the track drying up in the end. It didn't go exactly how I wanted because people didn't rush onto softs. But Otis Lawrence, again, setting the times alight. Like you've mentioned, he's just an absolute machine. But there were some other good times in there that we can't really gloss over.
3/4 of a second to pole position, I think, is just a testament to the ability of that Mercedes runner, and of course representing FRA, and of course Veloce as well. Failed to mention that one, as the drivers are very keen to get on with this one. I think, because of course we're going to be heading on to a restart, aren't we? Nonetheless, a really interesting event, because now what we have got ahead of us is a bunch of drivers with some really good confidence in them. Halo, 6th place. What a fantastic performance for FGE. They need those points, especially when they're fighting with the likes of ETE, who have had a really poor qualifying. So really good opportunity here for Fast Group to really make some inroads here. And then you take a look towards that sort of back end, though, of Q3. You've got one of the Shazoo drivers, one of the PSR drivers, and one of the VSR drivers not able to get their Q3 going. So now you've got a bunch of midfield runners in that midfield bunch racing with a bunch of other midfielders behind a bunch of fast runners. So it's essentially, if you want to call it as it is, fast midfield for a grid. Fascinating race ahead of us. I'm certainly looking forward to this one.
Yeah, you know what? I don't really know how it's going to pan out. Obviously, Otis is going to do his uttermost to absolutely fly away, and we know that all too well. Scyther's not as high up to challenge him, and really, PSR needed him to be higher than he is. They needed him P2 or P3. It hasn't worked. And I think, is it Sav as well? I can't remember. It's just happened, and I can't remember where he's finished. But yeah, there's a lot of pressure on the rest of the people behind in that fast midfield to get through, because you've quite rightly mentioned that they're fighting for points that they need to be higher up in the overall standings. I mean, you look at it, it looks like PSR are sitting pretty in P2. Visceral in P3. I think they're happy in in that third position. But Shizou, with both their drivers high up, have done an incredible job, because if they get some good points, all of a sudden they've got a chance for third.
Shazoo Venom ended in 8th place in the end, and Sav, as you were trying to think about where he finished, he was 9th in that qualifying session, with, of course, Choco making that little bit of a boo-boo that left him nearly causing his teammates some real problems in that qualifying session. He starts in P10. But then you've got, like, Dodo in 7th, you've got Halo in 6th, and then Magician for BRT in 5th place. You've got Finn in 4th, Piccolo 3rd, Cypher 2nd, and then, of course, the world champion Otis in 1st. So, as I said, you've got that sort of mixed bag here where you've got a bunch of fast drivers at the front, but then you've got midfield runners that really want to scrap for some good points here, and they've got a real opportunity to as well. Are they going to try and put a challenge on those in front, or are they going to want to try and hold on to their current positions, knowing that they've got a race with a bunch of fast drivers behind them? They're in a bit of a lose-lose here, especially the likes of ERL's Dodo, FGE, Halo, and Magician for BRT as well. They're all in that sort of mix. You know, what do they decide? So I'm sure all of the teams are going to be really sitting down and deciding what their race strategy is going to be. And of course, is a two-stop a potential now? Because of course, all of the drivers have now got fresh tires. With a restart, they've got that option.
Yeah, they do. You know what? Unless something drastic, I think these guys are going to push for a one-stop. These guys are incredible, but it's a very, very good point. Two-stop slightly opens up a little bit, and maybe the likes of Sav in P9, yeah, it's only P9, but maybe he thinks, you know what, maybe the two-stop is the way to go. A double stint on the softs, get himself into it, and so he can be really competitive at the end. You could be right. You could be right there. We will have to wait and see. But we are just waiting for everything to set itself back up. The lobby is very, very... Well, it's open. And we're just waiting for the drivers to get themselves sorted and back into the swing of things. Now, let's just head back to the standings, actually. Let's talk about the standings. As things stand, there is a 94-point lead for FRA over PSR. Now, it's almost certain, I'm almost guaranteeing it, that they're going to win this championship, because it would take something absolutely monumental for it all to mess up. But there's still 5 full rounds remaining. We obviously don't get points for qualifying here. The next sprint race isn't until round 13, and that's some way off. And obviously they get points for the sprint race there. So there's still plenty of points on offer, and all it takes is a couple of poor races and PSR to actually, a couple of 1-2s, and they're straight back in it, because that's, 70 odd points there.
Potentially, but the thing is PSR have been in a bit of bad form, haven't they, as a team? So I think when you look across the entire sort of esports world at the moment, Paradox are losing points around sort of especially in the team events such as WRLD. So Visceral are going to end up being in a really good position here to sort of capitalize on that one. And of course, when you've got Finn really, really maximizing the best he can in qualifying, of course, inadvertently after Choco's mistake, you know, they've got that opportunity there, but they really need to find that ground now, do Visceral, because if they start overstepping the mark and focusing on one driver and not focusing on both drivers as they've done throughout the season, they're going to end up in a position where they're not going to be able to capitalize on Paradox's mistakes and potentially challenge for that P2. We're also going to talk about the midfield as well, if you don't mind, because we've got the likes of FGE in there and Bug Racing Team. They both share 36 points alongside, of course, WOR Esports, who no longer race in the competition. So they are both racing very close to each other in this race, despite the fact that arguably Bunker have been the better team in form in this competition. But they've got FGE Halo right in there racing with Magician. It's going to be a very important race between the pair of them, and I think we need to just keep an eye out on that hotspot for racing between those two drivers, because if one of those make a mistake, it could cost them detrimentally in the table.
Now, and just to go on that as well, it's not just about, really, for those two, the battle for P6. Really, it's the battle for P5, because Velox left after round 5, and you know we've not seen them since, and They're on 59 points. These guys have a real good chance of jumping them, getting them another position. And similarly to real F1, there's obviously no money involved in the lower teams here, but it's the prestige. And if you get people watching this, rewatching it back and going, that team's good. I might not be good enough to drive for, let's say, FRA, but I might get some really good stuff out of FGE or Bunga. They're not super known teams, but they're still well known. And if you try and associate with that team, it can lead to really good things.
And this is why it's so important as well that we discuss potentially ERL, because ERL are below both Bunga Racing Team and FG in the standings. They're on 28. This is an important step for them because, of course, with their unfortunate downfall in the esports world at the moment, with the amount of history that they've got as a team, you would not expect them to be in the position that they're currently in. And the issue they're going to have is that certain drivers are going to look at that. Well, what do we decide? Do we go for an established team that is not performing so well, or do I go for a team that's perhaps not as established but is performing much better? The natural instinct for a lot of these drivers is to go for the latter, and that is going to hamper ERL's performance to try and fight for those championships back up the field. So this is an important championship, I think, for ERL here, because of course they didn't qualify for TPS, so they're in a position here where they're going to want to get their name in the lights, and so far their competition has not been very good, so they're going to want to try and outscore FGE and Bunga Racing Team quickly. Otherwise they're going to be in some serious trouble come the mid part of this game cycle.
Yeah, and that'll be problematic. And then puts them on a back step. I mean, I know it's about 6, maybe 8 months away before we get F1 2023, but it puts them on the back step there. And then all of a sudden, if you're not back step, you just look at history of real F1 as well. McLaren got wiped with that ban, but with the money, Lewis left them, and they've been on a recovery ever since. They've won one race since that time. That just shows how... Okay, that's on a much, much larger scale. But the same thing can happen here. But, likewise, all it takes is one win. And then that opens up doors and opens up avenues again, like you've already gone down. We have now got 20 drivers in. The lobby is just about to start for those of you watching. But I'm going to give you, Ryan, let's say Ryan 4.0, I think you are for now. I don't want to say who's going to win, because I think both of us are probably going to say one name. But who is the most likely to cause Otis problems tonight?
It's going to be Cypher, because he's been sort of challenging Otis throughout the season, hasn't he? And he's been obviously trying to fight with Otis throughout this championship. So, and you've got to remember as well, the source is obviously quite a key bit for overtaking if you're in P2. So if he gets the jump, he might put Otis under a little bit of pressure. And of course, he's got a bunch of quick drivers all behind that might then further put Otis under pressure. And especially when you're talking midfield drivers, if they want to really get their name out in the lights, how do you do it? You overtake the world champion, a driver that is going to be renowned in the esports world in the future. So if Otis doesn't get that good start, he might be in trouble going into La Source, but I think Scythe is going to be the one to watch.
We'll keep an eye on that. And obviously you've mentioned about the midfield battle throughout this as well. We've got PSR Sav. That's going to be an interesting. What can he do throughout? And then we've got Pisty in 11th. Now that is something interesting. We've got one driver of FRA at the front doing exactly what we expect of him. We've got the other one who has struggled. He didn't pick the right time to go out, made mistakes. And again, no disrespect to Pisty, but that's how it happened. And he's got to fight through this, and he's got to give his teammate as much backing as possible. And in my eyes, if I am only a lowly commentator, so I'm not 100% sure on this, but if Scyther decides to do an undercut and Pisty's there just ahead of him, I mean, if you were FRA, would you tell Pisty to hold up, stay out an extra lap longer, just to make sure Scyther doesn't make an undercut on their prized possession of Otis?
No, I wouldn't, because the thing is that Otis is already going to have the established pace, and I think if he's in front of Scyther, FRA aren't going to have anything to worry about when it comes to the performance of Scyther come an undercut. And I think they're going to allow Pisty to be able to have his own race, work with him to be able to develop and get as many points as they can, because of course, though that they've decided the Drivers' World Championship, the Constructors, or rather the Teams Championship, hasn't been decided quite yet. So they're going to want to get it wrapped up and done ASAP, let's be candid. So I would expect that they're just going to say, Pisty, do your own thing and work your magic. You're a world champion, not by accident in league racing. You can do it and gain points here. So it's all going to be about the rest of the performance. I'm going to be keeping my firm eye on that midfield tournament between especially the likes of FGE and ERL and Bunga Racing Team, because that is going to be an imperative part of this race, especially as we get into the midfield. And obviously, we're approaching the end of the season. This may or make or break certain teams.
Yeah, you're right. And I think we, as commentators, as viewers, we kind of forget about these midfield battles a little bit. We always want to see who's winning. I mean, that's just the way of the world, I think. But you're right, that midfield battle is vital. And we're going into round 10 tonight. And going back to the leaders, I know we've just sort of spoke about this midfield and we should be focusing more, but I'm going to focus on Otis Lawrence one last time. He can make this world tonight a 90% win ratio. And that is phenomenal. You've mentioned him as a machine. It is incredible how very little he makes a mistake.
I can't describe it, because the thing is like I said, it's the consistency that I think more that because he's got the pace and the consistency, he's got the package, but those parts all time together with the mentality. You need the brain and the bravery to be able to continue on with that, because of course when he's racing, he's not like a driver that leads from the front and is not able to race with people. He can race, and he can race fast as well. So the guy has got all of the three mechanisms of a great racer, and I'm certainly looking forward to seeing what he's got coming up post Xbox, because I genuinely think he could be a real contender for the likes of racing with Jarno Opmeer, Thomas Ronhaar, Barry Barraman in the F1 esports world, because come the next season, you are going to be seeing Otis Lawrence racing in the esports world. There's just no way that a man of his caliber, who arguably has had a very similar career to the likes of Ronhaar in the previous game, is not going to be, a man to watch next season. I'm certainly looking forward to seeing what he's got coming up.
It's gonna be interesting to say the least. While they get themselves ready, get the setups done and dusted, let's remind you of the 4 further rounds remaining of the season. Next week we have the American Grand Prix Circuit of the Americas. Then we go to Canada. Then we go to Brazil for our final sprint race, feature race combo. And then we end the season at Miami, which is always an entertaining one. I remember it in WR Tier 1, and it was absolutely phenomenal there. Chandler Sater actually got a better start than not Thomas Ronhaar. We're talking about Thomas Ronhaar so much, Otis being similar to Ronhaar. Maybe they're the same person. Maybe. Doubtful. But they are both incredibly quick. He got a better start than Otis, and Sive was in there, and some incredible drivers throughout the season here. It's both in WR and in the Legacy Division side of it as well. So it's great to continue going on and being a commentator for it. It's great to have you alongside me. It's been a little, I think it was last season maybe, we had a little bit of a commentary doing for Tier 1.
I'm trying to remember. I think the last time that we actually commentated together was probably one of the pre-season events to the game, if you remember. I think me and you had a bit of a commentary duo then. That it's awesome to be alongside. It's awesome to be alongside everyone else who's watching in WRLD as well, as people can see my face for the first time as well. Bought a camera especially for this event, by the way. Just saying, I just want to put it out there. I said last week that this would be my last WRLD event, at the last race, and of course, at the last minute I've been called up. So I do appreciate, the further opportunity to be alongside you for this event. And, what is going to be, I think, a very interesting race with that sort of midfield towards the front, and then you've got people that should be towards the front in the midfield. You know, it's going to be a really, really interesting race. And I'm just taking a look at the tyres as well, and we've still got a bunch of people electing, by the looks of things, to start on that medium tyre. So they've got a 2-stop potential on there, although I'd expect a medium hard is going to be the way to go. Everyone else on that hard medium. This is going to be a really fun race, whatever happens.
So 16 seconds until lights out. I tell you what, top 3 for me.
Otis, Scyther, and Finn.
There we have it. Very, very concise. No second guessing yourself there. Fair play. I couldn't do it as quickly as that. But no formation lap here. We're going straight into racing, hopefully. Here we are. 2, 3, 4, 5 red lights. WOR Legacy Division is go for Season 1, and Otis Lawrence has had a pretty good start on the insides. Piccolo is also trying to hold off Finn behind, but he's gone up the inside and he's clipped Scyther, and Scyther's around, and that is not the start he would have wanted. Dodo up into P4, fighting away with Finn. Look at the gaggle of cars behind with Halo holding off, and there's more damage. That is a Red Bull, and that's Venom pretty much out of this race.
Oh, dearie me. Sorry about that one. Scyther made the call that I thought he was going to be up there, but unfortunately, it looks like we've had a bit of a horrible collision going through into, looks like Radion, and we've got a bunch of drivers all in there. Pat Leisure, Kevar, Maris, Venom, all involved in some horrible collisions. BRT's Justin also out there as well. Magician doesn't have a front wing, and that's now his race. Really compromised out there at the moment. Well, what a start from the likes of Dodo, making some really good inroads there. Up 3 positions. Sav up 4 in that one. Piccolo up 1 to second. Finn up to third. But Piccolo surely has got a time penalty potentially lingering over his head after that collision with Scyther. It was speculative, to say the least, as we go green again in Belgium. What a move as he goes down the inside line into turn 1 at La Source and gets the jump on Dodo. What a dive to go down the inside, lick the stamp, and sent it via first class. And he is going to be happy with that one, as he's now up to 5th place. And he's now trying to chase VSR Finn. Fast Group Esports really need these points, and he's racing so well at the moment, is Halo. Sorry to interrupt you on that one there, Warder. It sounds like to me we've got some sound issues coming from yourself. I can't hear you in the stream, and I can't hear the cars either. So hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll be able to get your lovely voice back on in the stream. But while this is all happening, Halo still continuing on with his charge with Finn, by the way, who's now out of the DRS territory of Sav, of course, who's on that medium tyre. That is now offering a big opportunity for Halo to potentially get some inroads to get to P4 for FGE. Amazing.
Well, hopefully, I'm not sure what is going on in the background, because that is rather annoying. But Dodo then in, hopefully you can hear me now though, Jota, but Dodo struggling, even on the softer compound tyre, he's struggling.
I am just sorry for that one. I've just taken a moment to hopefully, fingers crossed, that we can hear you. We can now hear you. So it's awesome to have you back with us now on that one, Ward. And just keeping a firm eye on the situation with Dodo, who's really struggling on these medium tyres at the moment. He's just 1.5 down already at the moment on Halo, as Piccolo and Sav exchanging positions at the moment. PSR really needs to get that move done and dusted. Of course, remember, Piccolo's potentially got maybe a stewarding inquiry hovering over his head after that collision with Scyther. PSR taking P2 in what I think is maybe a bit of a retribution to get that position right back out of Piccolo's hands. But of course, he needs to try and make those mediums work. He's 1.2 seconds back on Otis, who, by the way, has just been navigating around the circuit, just sort of monitoring his own race at the moment. The question is Sav going to be able to bring back those medium tyres and really start putting a challenge on Otis? I'd say that it's a potential opportunity on the door here for PSR.
Possibly. Almond and Amin swapping places there. The Novus teams are probably for the best, as Almond is on the medium compound tyre, a bit quicker at the moment. Well, he's meant to be quicker. Unfortunately, Dodo, who was in a similar situation, should be quicker, but he's dropping off a little bit. Hopefully for him, he can find a little bit of pace when it comes to the hard compound tyres, but we'll have to wait and see. Sav is slowly catching back up with Otis Lawrence now, and this is going to be a little bit of a battle, considering the tyre difference between the two of them.
And he's also got the fastest lap of this race as well, as Sav is flying at the moment. And speaking of flying, Paradox Sim Racing, it's Scyther, his teammate, also starting to fly now. He's putting some serious pressure now on the former Velox drivers, now ETA Esport drivers in front of him at the moment. They're posing a little bit of a challenge, and he has been putting a little bit of pressure on in the third sector, but I'm expecting maybe, just maybe, they might be under some pressure going into Lacombe.
Look, Dodo massively in trouble. I think it's going to be a double car overtake. Can Scyther get past Harv as well? He's had a little look, but I don't think it was going to ever really going to happen. But Dodo's dropping like a stone right now. And that's not exactly what he would have wanted. Pisty's in a little bit of world of his own in P6 at the moment. And that's not what he would have wanted. But FGE Halo, you'll talk about the middle battle. FGE are probably right now are absolutely over the moon.
They're absolutely going to be over the moon at the moment. Foss Group Esports currently, I believe, 7th in the standings at the moment, unless I am mistaken. Obviously tied with Bunga Racing on 36. So this is absolutely the best case scenario here, because, of course, Magician ended up making a mistake himself, and he ended up falling all the way down at the back of the grid without a front wing. So now FGE could be earning some big points off of Bunga and potentially starting to close down the gap ever so slightly on Team Shizou, though themselves racing really well with Piccolo. Again, as I say, may have a bit of a stewarding inquiry over his shoulders with that collision with Scyther, who himself is now putting some pressure now on Harv. He may look for the dive going into bus stop, but that would be unwise, as I think it is inevitable that another overtake is going to be done going into Lacombe.
Let's stay on board with Sav as he gets close to Otis, but then Otis is able to get out of La Source quite quickly, but then through Eau Rouge Radion onto the Camel Straight. I think this time around for the Williams driver is going to be very, very solid. Let's stay on board as he comes into the Camel Straight, but he's still half a second away. I don't think the overspeed is going to work, and we might have to go back on board with Scyther as he is bumping away with Harv as they come down the Camel Straight. And look at that in the background as well. The action is all over the place right now.
Of course, it makes a lot of sense that Harv has decided to give that position up for ET8. Of course, ET8 now solely focusing on WRLD after their eviction from the Paradox series yesterday. So it is going to be all about what that team can do within this tournament. And of course, focusing on the one is certainly going to be beneficial, as we've got some really good racing happening at the moment here between 10th and 12th at the moment, as it looks to me as if Venom is a little bit far back. It's actually a battle between 10th and 12th with Amine getting in the mix here. And it looks like the two Novus drivers are racing really well with ERL. And again, as to be expected, ERL flying high, but not so much for ETE, as they've lost one of their drivers and a bit of a half spin with Amine racing with ERL at that particular point. And it looks like both ETE drivers out, retiring in the pit lane. Maris.
Yeah, that's not ideal for them at all. But Dodo and Almond coming together. And then Amin and Dodo coming together as well. Amin was trying to get the move done on the ERL driver, but it just wasn't happening. And it's actually costing them in the battle with the ET8 drivers in P8 and 9 respectively there. But there goes Amin past the ERL driver this time around into the bus stop chicane. And now Amin will have to try and hold on to the coattails of his teammate to try and make sure it's defensible going down the Kemmel Straight.
The problem I think we've got with Dodo is that this is one thing I was going to mention about Scyther. One thing I've really loved about Scyther is that he's been absolutely fascinating to watch when it comes to his long-term race strategy, when it comes to his ERS management. But unfortunately for Dodo, he's just absolutely not been able to manage that effectively. And unfortunately, he's hemorrhaging positions. He's losing another one to Venom before they even get into the DRS zone. Now down to 13.
Not ideal at all. And that's Magician out of the race. He's had enough. We're only lapped 6 of 22 and 3 drivers have gone, and that is not ideal for BRT at all because their other driver is currently 14th and their main rivals FGE are 5th, and yeah, not what they would have wanted at all. Harvest pulling away from his teammate in P9, trying to keep on board onto the back end of Scyther. But let's go on board with Sav. We've not seen the leaders for a little while, but he's trying. He's desperately trying to keep up with Otis. It's just not happening right. Well, I say keep up. He's keeping up. He just can't do anything more than that.
I was going to say as well, it's a real disappointment that Magician has gone as well, because I don't know, disrespect to Justin, but Magician was, I think, probably the faster driver in the two teams here. So it was all about what Justin can get for scraps while Magician races towards the front. And of course, he got tagged. He lost his front wing. He's now at the back and now retires. So Justin is the sole driver, and he's obviously immediately feeling that pressure because he's now got a 3-second time penalty for track extension problems on lap 6 of 22.
Yeah, it's not ideal at all for the BRT team, but anything can happen in F1, and it usually does. Sav, again, close through the source. We will have to keep on an eye on that one. I'm really, really impressed. Apart from that first lap, turn 1 incident from Piccolo, he's holding his own right now in P3, and he might get it taken away from him in the end, but he's doing a relatively good job. Sav gets very close to the back end of the Mercedes. It's just not happening for him. The straight just wasn't long enough. Finn desperately trying to get through the Red Bull, the Ferrari versus Red Bull battle that's going on, but Halo is sticking to the gearboxes of these drivers, and it's great to see if you're a midfield battle, because now it puts FGE in a little bit of a commanding seat in the final 4 rounds, but the pendulum could swing again.
False Group Esports are going to be so happy at the moment with the performance of their driver. 5th place and racing so well with the front runners at the moment. He's been racing absolutely fantastic. And the thing is, he's not even been over pushing the car either. He's got well over 50% ERS at his disposal as well. So this guy is a serious possibility of getting some really good points, potentially a podium for FGE, whilst they're co-compatriots around them in the tournament. Bunga Racing Team down in 14th and a DNF, and of course WR Esports not racing in this tournament at all. So they're in a really good position here to get some big points in this tournament, and it's desperately needed.
It definitely is, and I think Bourbon Boy really did a good job for them a few weeks ago, getting that podium, and that's really invigorated the FGE team, and it's showing because Halo's doing a good job as well, and he's actually catching Finn on this lap around because Finn's dropped away from Piccolo, and that could help FGE a little bit, the Halo driver, the Halo out a little bit for the time being. But let's go on board quickly with Venom, who's desperately trying to reclaim some positions as he gets past one of the Haas drivers, and now he has Amin just ahead of him, and Almond actually dropping off quite a bit. Those mediums maybe not the tyres to be on right now. We will be expecting them to come into the pits pretty soon. Harv is dropping away from Scyther in the background, in the foreground there, but let's go back to Finn, who gets very close to the back end of Piccolo, but it's not happening again at the end of the Kemmel Straight.
I'm keeping a very firm eye on what's happening at the moment towards the front, as Amine and Tom getting into a little battle in 9th and 10th. Sav is gaining and well within the DRS territory of Otis Lawrence, and he's still putting pressure on him, but he's not really looking for an overtake, which I think is a bit of a weird call to make, because if you're on the medium tyre, you want to be in front of a driver on the hards and force them to be slow, because of course they'll lose time when it comes to their medium tyre stints. So it just a bit bamboozles me at the moment that Sav is not putting pressure enough on Otis to make the overtake when he was close enough, certainly, to make the overtake into Lacombe. And I think we would be wise to consider making an overtake soon, as FRT Tom, 3-second time belt say, multiple warnings, we're starting to see him come in.
Yeah, lap 8 of 22, and we've got 2 drivers with warnings. We mentioned, or we briefly mentioned it earlier on, that penalties will be something to watch out for in this race. And again, the third sector, I tell you what, FGE Halo is incredibly quick because he gets to the back end of Finn, but he just doesn't seem to have anything in from the exit of La Source into the Coombs. He just doesn't have the overall pace then.
Finn is struggling with ERS management at the moment as Halo was so late on the brakes, and I think that's because Finn is lifting and coasting at the moment to try and regain some of the electrical energy. That's caught Halo napping a little bit, and now might be under a little bit of pressure from Pisty, but going towards up through Eau Rouge into Radion. Now here comes FGE Halo as he's going to have the tow, but he's got no electrical energy at the moment as VSR Finn, and even with the very slick Ferrari that he's got, Halo now up to 4th and breathing down the neck of a potential podium.
This is incredible for FGE. Halo is doing exactly what FGE are paying, well, I say paying him, but doing exactly what they want from him, and it's going good at the moment. Finn's going to fight back, but there's just nothing around that corner at the moment. PSR Sav has dropped away from Otis Lawrence. All of a sudden, his incredible pace has just dropped off on lap 9. Otis is now trying to, well, build a gap, make sure those hards are used exactly how he wants them. But Finn, right now, must be thinking, what on earth does he have to do to regain some of that ERS energy that he's lost, because Halo is absolutely commanding his race in exactly how he wants to do.
While this is all happening, by the way, Sav is losing time now to Otis Lawrence. I did say it would have been wise for Sav to maybe put a bit of pressure on Otis and make the overtake, because at this point in the race, it would have been all about how much time that he can gain off of Otis losing time and being in the back of the Williams. But now he's out of the DRS and losing big time, and he's now coming into the pits to get off of the medium tyre and now potentially go on to a set of hards to the end of this race. But there is the potential for a 2-stop. This is a very early call. It would be a 12-lap stint now to the end of this race on a set of hard tyres, no problem at all. But that 2-stop potentially is there if they want to potentially mix things up, though I'd expect that track position is going to be their priority as he now leaves the pit lane, but he's going to be in a little bit of traffic versus, I think, ERL Dodo and potentially Justin. Sav now just leaving the pit lane, Dodo just coming around La Source, and it looks like he's managed to get him no problem at all. So it's clean air for PSR Sav.
That's probably exactly what Sav wanted. However, have we got a pit from Almond as well, who might not be so lucky, because Choco is no easy customer to overtake, and he's got Choco ahead of him as Finn, massive overstep there coming out of I think that's turn 7, sorry, and that is not, wow, that is not what I expect from Finn. Finn's usually quite a calm, collected driver, but that back end just didn't want to know any of it there. And maybe his hard compound tyres are starting to struggle a little bit as well. But Halo still doing a good job. He's got Piccolo ahead of him, and he's going to be looking at trying to find a way past him. But there's a 5.1 second gap between first and second now. We have had a pit stop to Sav, who was that second place man. Just to remind everyone about that one. Dodo picking up a 3-second time penalty as well. And is that Finn picking up a 3-second time penalty?
The unfortunate circumstances. This is what is best described as, well, colloquially known as Fernando Alonsoing your car. He's overdriving that Ferrari at the moment, and he's got 3% ERS as he goes into the bus stop chicane now, does Finn, and I'm expecting surely he's going to be potentially now putting Halo under some pressure, because Halo has made a bit of a mistake again from Piccolo, who is now lifting and coasting going into corners because he himself is now struggling with ERS management. So Halo really in a good position at the moment as regards of his own race, but the drivers around him are all sort of lifting and coasting, and he's out of sync with the rest of them, and he's been caught out now. This is the second time he's been caught out in 2 laps as Halo. So he's under a little bit under the cosh here now, because he's now just within the DRS territory. But Finn, no ERS at all, and he's still using overtake because he's fending off a serious challenge from FRA Pistic, who has been really holding his own here, as he's now surely going to go for the dive into La Source, into Lacombe, sorry. But in the end, electing not to go for the overtake. I'd have gone for the dive.
Yeah, I think I would have done as well. But this is probably music to Halo and maybe Piccolo's ears as well, because these guys will lose the DRS advantage that they have battling away with that. And Cyber coming into the mix just behind as well. And that all of a sudden opens up a massive can of worms, because Cyber's going to be desperate to get himself back into the swing of things and back into some really good scoring points. I think both him and Sav getting podium last time out? I think they'll want something similar tonight. Finn teetering on the edge of DRS, but I think he's going to lose it because of all the ERS he's used so far. And all of a sudden, FGE Halo is just not being quick through that second and third sector. And now he might struggle a little bit, but he's still got the measure of Finn. But Piccolo, actually, I think has maybe upped his game a little bit.
21-second average pit stop around here, Warder, and as it stands at the moment, Sav is 18.3 behind Otis Lawrence. So Otis will be moving on to a set of medium tyres, but will have to race for the lead of the race, which I think is going to be easy goings maybe for Otis, but Sav has been racing really well, and this second stint now is all going to be about what he's going to do later on in this race. Is he going to be more consistent with his lap times? Is he going to want to look after the hards, or is he going to push hard to get in front and get a gap on Otis? As we've got a bunch of drivers all coming in, Finn and Pisty all coming in for pit stops, as is FRT's Tom. Dodo also in the pits alongside Amine. So it is all going to be about now an 18-second gap for Sav to halve. He's got so much clean air to make inroads on Otis Lawrence. Could be a good 3 or 4 second gap here to Otis.
Let's see what will happen. Choco getting past him in P10. He's obviously running longer on those hards for the time being. And what else is going on? Because Pisty is still right behind Finn. Finn obviously with that penalty. These mediums are going to be so quick in the early stages of this second stint. And here comes, I'm in on Choco. He's made the move quite easy there. And Choco is fighting back though, but it's just not going to be. Will he try it up the inside? He thinks better of it. And that's probably the best thing for Choco to do, if he can just stick to the back end of this Haas and just push him forward a little bit further. Otis Lawrence, I am tempted to go on board with him to see if he goes into the pits. And because HGE Halo must have made a mistake, because he's 1.1 seconds away from Piccolo now. And talking of FGE, Pat Ledger is not having the best of times.
Otis stays out then. Looks like he's going to be doing potentially, I think, a 9-lap stint on a set of mediums. I'd expect he's going to be coming in at the end of this lap. He's got over 50% ERS as well, so he's really been minding his own business as Piccolo and Halo both coming in. Would have been wise for Halo to maybe come in 1 lap early to try and get the undercut on Piccolo, but he's going to continue racing with him nonetheless. Scyther stays out, but surely Otis is going to be coming in at the end of this lap here and potentially really wreak havoc on those medium tyres, because he's really losing time now versus Sav at the moment. He's getting in really a nice clean air is Sav to just bring those laps coming in, and he's obviously lapping faster, but Venom fastest of anyone so far with that 45.4.
Yeah, so the lap times are going to start tumbling. The track is obviously rubbering up nicely and the cars are getting lighter. So I don't want to say it, but is Otis going to try something very weird and stay out as long as he can to get a set of softs on the end? I mean, could we see something as mental as that tonight?
Potentially. What we're going to be talking about more or less at the moment is that battle with FGE Halo. Unfortunately, him staying out that 1 lap later, I did say pit 1 lap earlier and he would have benefited from it. Unfortunately, he's now lost a bunch of positions versus Pisty, and that has now put him in the outside chance of getting the podium that I think FGE really want. I mean, let's be honest, I think if they get 5th place, they'd be really happy. But 3rd place would have been sort of an absolute beauty for False Group Esports, but now he's going to have to sit behind some racing sort of challenges here from Mercedes and Red Bull, with Piccolo and Pisty battling at the moment, and Pisty's been racing really well. He pitted 1 lap earlier, and no surprises, Otis has decided to come in. Oh, he's got a 5-second penalty for speeding in the pit lane. Uncharacteristic error from the world champion. He now pits onto a set of medium tyres. Sav is surely going to get the undercut on him on those hard tyres, but he's now got to race in plus 5 seconds.
Now, we will wait and see. Is it worth going on board with Sav? Let's go on board with Sav as Otis reaches the end of the pit lane. They're going to be very close to being side by side as they come out of it. Otis Lawrence has a 1.4 second gap between the two. Otis must have pulled something quite big out the bag for the end of it, and he's got 6.7 seconds to Cyther. Maybe Cyther is going to be the man that holds up Otis to help his teammate out, wear his tyres out a little bit. I can't see it wearing out too much, but let's go on board with Pisty, the other FRA driver, as he's tumbling down the Kemmel straight into the coupe. Is there going to be Pisty on a move on? Piccolo a move on Finn? There isn't. And these guys, this is some great battling from 4th to 7th right now.
Scyther's not going to pit. He's going to stay out, and he might be putting Otis under some pressure here, because with those old hard tyres, he could really make some problems here for Otis. If he stays out longer, allow Sav to catch up and put some pressure on Otis. If he can then get in front, every lap counts with that 5-second penalty on his head.
Now, we saw it in, for those of you who did watch, or even some of it last night, the esports, where the one driver stayed out and caused absolute carnage and caused some questionable driving from some other people, which allowed Jarno Opmeer to go on and win. Are we going to see that with Cyther? I'm not saying Cyther is going to cause carnage, but because he stayed out and maybe continuing to stay out, is he going to cause that similar carnage tonight?
Oh, he's pitting. That surprises me. That I really would have thought PSR would have asked Cypher to stay out and cause Otis some pressure here, because of course if he stays out, that allows Sav to catch up and make the calls. I don't know if PSR have just basically said, Cypher, it's your call to decide what you want to do, but I really would have told him stay out and put pressure on Otis, because now he's got clean air on fresh medium tyres to make a race victory here, and Paradox want to continue on with some relatively good form, let's be honest, and think about the points in their race with Visceral at the moment. And now Shazoo are going to make the overtake with Venom. Cypher down to 8th. It doesn't quite make sense to me why they've done that personally.
Well, I think anything was better than what Cyther was going to get at from the first lap incident with Piccolo, and it cost them a very good chance of a 1-2. Finn isn't really catching Sav ahead, so this battle for P3 is a battle for P3, and all Sav has to do is just maintain that gap behind. But Otis Lawrence, he's already brought out 2 seconds in 1.5 laps.
Yeah, it's going to be probably on his way now to his 9th win of the season of 10. Which has been, a monumental achievement to say the least. The only time he didn't win was when he got 3rd place. It's every single race he's got a podium at the moment is Otis, and he's just flying high. It's all about what Sav can do versus the rest of them behind, because of course you'd expect Finn, Piccolo, Pisty and Halo to start gaining their time now with those medium tyres versus his now 5-lap-old hards. They are starting to age a little bit here, and though you'd expect towards the end of the race he'll have no problem at all, versus medium tyres might be a bit of a problem.
It might be indeed. Some good points made for Sav. He's got to make sure he keeps that gap, and it has gone below the 4-second mark for the first time since the pit stop phase. And there we have it, Otis Lawrence, the fastest man on the track. And who would have thought it? He's pulling away from Sav as a rate of knots right now. The Shazoo driver, Piccolo, though, he's desperate. So close to the back end of VSR Finn. And Finn has got a fair bit to be worried about, to be honest, because his ERS is very, very low.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just keeping a very firm eye on the Piccolo situation then, as now he has got only 2 and 3 and 2 and 1% ERS, and I think he's going to derate actually in trying to make this overtake versus Finn, and he is going to look for it around the outside. He's going to have to go though, but very, very well placed from VSR Finn. That is textbook defending to take that inside line, just squeeze into the outside, and that has now caught Piccolo in a real spot of bother here with 2 and 3% ERS going into Brookside. Plenty of ERS available for Piste as well as Halo actually in that matter. They've now got 2 drivers behind who are very ready and raring to go to make some overtakes.
I think that is exactly what Piste and Halo are doing. They're just holding back, biding their time. There's still 6.5 laps remaining. It's not crunch time just yet. They don't have to make any silly moves. They've seen the 2 drivers, probably know of their ERS usage is pretty high and not got much in the bank. And you know what? They can afford to sit behind a couple laps, see if these, and the possibility is they could take each other off the track because they're battling so hard with no ERS. One of them has to break at this point, and it could cause an incident. But look at Pisty. He's actually might be thinking, you know what, I'm fed up from seeing the back end of a Red Bull. He's going to the outside of the first part of the bus stop chicane. He's made the move stick, and he's got into P4 there and taken that P4 away from Piccolo. And now Piccolo's in trouble with Halo behind. He's got to go into Lasor side by side with him, and he's trying to get the move done, but he just doesn't have the grip, I don't think.
Won't have the grip, but he certainly will have the ability to make the move. But he's got to be very wary here because he's lacking ERS now, and he might end up being in the spot of bother versus Piccolo for the rest of the race here because they'll both struggle with ERS here. So it's all going to be using toe, I think, and no surprises. FGE Halo is using a little bit of overtake to get the move done, but now he's going to struggle with ERS as he tries to close down the gap on Piste, and that is a really low downforce setup, which has just worked an absolute treat for Halo alongside some excellent driving. He's now up to 5th place. He now continues on racing with Piste, and they're going to try and challenge Finn.
Well, that's possibly helped Finn out a little bit. He's had a little bit of a breather. Instead of someone attacking him for the whole course, he's decided he's had a bit of a breather. They're still there, but he can possibly save a little bit of ERS and be a little bit, take a breath. Just sit and go, what's my next move, instead of just constantly under pressure like he was with Piccolo. But thankfully, I think it was a little bit of a mistake out of not Radion, I don't know what I'm talking about, out of Blanchimont that cost Piccolo those 2 positions in the end. And obviously the ERS usage being so high for him has cost him as well. But really, this is the main battle we've got on track at the moment, because Sav has not got anything in comparison to Otis Lawrence. There's just no answer to Otis Lawrence tonight. He's 7 seconds clear, and you know what, he could probably have a cup of tea and then still come out and win the race.
Yes, to be fair, that's a fair point, actually. Looking at it here now, actually. With the incident with VSR Finn, 3 seconds currently his case at the moment with regards to the penalties as well. I could absolutely crossed my mind, actually. It never crossed my mind at this point that Finn is actually in some serious trouble as regards to where he's going to finish at the end of this race as it stands at the moment. He's going to fall as far as P6. And that is going to offer a double podium finish for FRA, which is exactly what they were looking for, especially with PSR with Scyther down in 7th. That's obviously going to allow them to extend their lead in the championship and head them towards what is going to inevitably be a cracking world title. But here comes Piste as he's trying to put the pressure on Finn, not even needing to worry about time penalties. He's going to try and go around the outside of Lacoon, but it's not going to work on this particular occasion. And Halo now being invited right into the mix for a potential P4. And of course, if he stays in P4 with Finn in P3, it's only going to give FGE a podium.
This, you know what, I am really, really impressed. I mean, with Finn, his defensive driving, his positioning of cars have been absolutely out of this world tonight. It's great to see, and he's okay. He's got that 3-second time penalty, but he's doing everything he can to get that podium on track, and that's all he wants. And who knows, maybe it was a glitch from the game that's given him the penalty, and he can get the 3 seconds taken off. Not 100% sure, but he's caught up to Sav a little bit. It's a second since we last spoke about the timing between the two of them, but I don't think really it's going to be anything to write home about for these guys battling for the final podium position. All it takes, though, is Sav to have a couple of nightmarish corners, a couple of penalties come his way. Again, it spices things up a little bit. FGE Halo trying to line up a little bit, but he's also got to worry about Piccolo behind, who's making moves now, because look at this. Scyther has decided to enter the fray, and Scyther really wants to get himself back up here, and he wants to cause, well, nightmare for Piccolo, nightmare for Halo, nightmare for Pisty, because he probably feels a little bit a little bit mortified about what happened on lap 1.
Piccolo's going to struggle with ERS, though, and here comes Scyther, as he rightfully pointed out. I was going to say he was trying to invite himself competition. He just invited himself. He's kicked the door down and said, hello, I'm here. He's now up to 6th place, and he's now trying to challenge Halo, and Halo is going to be gulping here, thinking, I need to make an inroads on Pisty here, because suddenly PSR are now inviting themselves to a double podium instead. This is going to be spicy. 3 laps to go.
Yeah, what can we see happening? Halo defending with all his might right now, because Scyther is literally in his diffuser, and it won't be long, I don't think, until Scyther gets himself through. You know what? The pace that Scyther's got right now, he could possibly challenge his teammate for second place.
Ooh, that would be a bold call with so little time left as well. To be fair, lap 19 of 22, Tom getting a 3-second time penalty for multiple warnings. Now we're starting to see them coming in thick and fast. Finn is still the only person from third all the way as far down as 8th to have a time penalty here, and that would fall him as far down as 7th as it stands. And no, Finn is not going to be happy with this one here. Halo now, this is where I said he was struggling with his ERS management in racing with Piccolo, has now put himself under some serious pressure versus Scyther as he tries to make a move into Blanchimont, but in the end elects not to, and he'll stay behind as they go through bus stop. And they're then heading down into La Source. I'd expect Pisty surely is now going to start to look here at making some inroads on Finn, because he knows Scyther is going to be breathing down the necks of both of them very, very quickly as he looks to go down that inside line. And he has challenged FGE Halo as they now go down towards the Eau Rouge corner, and Scyther is going to be in front at the point of the DRS detection point, which is going to allow Halo DRS as he goes around the outside. What a move to defend from that one versus Scyther. They stay side by side, but DRS is available for Scyther. I thought it was going to be Halo on that occasion. In fact, both of them will have it because they're in DRS, so the driver's in front. Pisty has decided to make the move, but in the end, Scyther has managed to get Halo out of P5. Pisty does make the inroads, but they're going to go side by side. Heading now into Brookside, and this is going to be close here. Going around the outside, he's going to be off camber. There may be a lock-up, and there certainly is. Pisty now up to third.
What? Oh, God, Finn's into the wall.
No!
What has happened there? That is absolutely gutting. Was it an overstep or was there contact? I don't think there was contact. I think it was just too much power down. And Finn, for all that defensive masterclass that he's shown tonight, just one small error has cost him some major points. And that has put, well, the cat among the pigeons, really, because Scyther is right up to Pisty. We've got 2 laps remaining of this, and it's going to be very, very close between Pisty and Scyther. It's FRA versus PRS all over, and you know what? I don't know which way this is going to go.
Fairly certain here that we're going to be looking more likely at a PSR double podium here, because those fresh medium tyres that Scyther elected to go on in the end might have just brought him into the fray for a potential podium, but it is all about that sort of challenge at the moment with Pisty. Pisty is a capable defender. He has been for a few seasons now, to be fair, and I'm expecting he's going to be putting a big challenge on to try and hold on to P3. And as regards to the incident with Finn, absolutely what caused that incident was that he just put the power down. I said he was off camber, and unfortunately he lost that rear end and he snapped it out and he was in the wall. As now and then, Pisty really struggling through Eau Rouge. Scyther looking like he's going to make the inroad very early on indeed. And now PSR have got a double podium.
This is what PSR would have wanted at the start, but maybe with Scyther attacking Otis a little bit more. No one's really managed to do that tonight so far, but Scyther's doing everything he can. FGE Halo has a lot of work on his shoulders to keep the 2 Shizou drivers behind, because Venom is starting, you know, we talk about enter-player Scyther, enter-player Venom as well. He's slowly getting himself into the mix, and he's on 10-lap-old mediums. He's doing an incredible job on those tyres. But Halo trying to keep to the back end of FRA Pisty, and you know what? If I had to give a driver of the day now, 2 laps ago, I probably would have given it to Finn. But now I think I'll be siding it with either Halo or Scyther, because both drivers have shown us something special tonight.
Oh, absolutely. I'm just taking a very quick look at the situation at the moment. Sav, no doubt, will be getting the driver of the day performance from 9th as far down as he was. He's now up to 2nd place in this race. And, of course, Scyther is going to be racing really well. Pisty's up 7 positions as well. What a race from Expert Olven, though, all the way down at the back of the grid. Now 11th place for him, though. He'll be outside of the points. It has been a really good race indeed from Novus, who are now up to 9th and 11th. But FGE are going to be earning big points as it stands as we start the final lap of this race. Otis Lawrence over 10 seconds in front of Sav. What a race from the world champion.
He is absolutely on fire. I don't think anything can really stop him in a championship scenario. Maybe on a one race, maybe one lap, someone can stop him. But over a championship season, he has been absolutely out of this world. Pisty losing ground, hand over to Scyther now. Is Halo going to think of an audacious move into the comms? Surely not. He's gone up the inside, but he thinks better of it. He's happy. He's probably thinking, you know what? This is, I don't want to go bust. I don't want to go balls or bust because at the moment he's got some incredible points for FGE, which are going to help them massively out in this championship. 11 seconds between Otis and Sav at the moment. There is no other battles on track right now. It's just Pisty, Halo and Piccolo, and I think that's how it's going to stand as well.
Oh, very briefly before we hand it over to you, of course, to announce the winner of this race. If I was FGE, I'd go and throw something in there because there was a couple of bites of the chariot trying to defend that one from Pisty, in fairness. He was weaving a little bit going into the corner. So I'd throw something in there. Maybe they could get a P4 out of this.
We'll wait and see. We've lost a driver. I think that's Choco, who's just spun it around. But it would be very amiss of me not to go on this man as he crosses the line. He's pretty much unstoppable. Otis Lawrence, the drivers' champion here in the Legacy Division of World. Sav will come home in a very respectable second place here tonight as well. Scyther, great recovery drive from him after an incident on lap 1. And there we go. Pisty, Halo and Piccolo will finish in that order. What a race. A little bit controversial, a little bit spicy, but exactly how we want to see some racing as well live on track. Choco really, no front wing for him. Incredible race. Your thoughts immediate thoughts on that, Jota?
Immediate thoughts are going to suggest, of course, Otis is a world champion, not by accident, leading the way in the end after the penalties applied by nearly 7 seconds. He was absolutely flying throughout that one. Big shout out as well, though, to ET8 as well. They really, really needed the double points finish this season after, of course, their disappearance, demise, removal, if you will, from TPS. They need to put some performances in, and they've gone and done it with a double points finish. So they'll be happy with that one. Of course, Racing with Novus, one of their drivers, just missing out. With Expert Almond in 11th, but what can you say? The world champion is a world champion, well deserved, and Sav getting the drive of the day, no surprises on that one.
No, it's exactly how you'd expect from the game. I mean, you could give Otis Lawrence a driver of the day every race because he's done exactly what he needed to do. He's done everything he needed to. So. Absolutely incredible from that man. But game's given it to Sav, which is understandable because he's made so many positions this race as well. But let's go down the order one last time here for the Legacy Division. Otis Lawrence with pole, fastest lap, and the race victory, 144.5 for him. Sav in second place, and alongside them for a second week running, it's Scyther with, it's incredible to see PSR doing a number of incredible jobs considering the situations they were in. Pisty in fourth place, fifth to Halo. What a result for him. In sixth was Piccolo, Venom in seventh, eighth to Amin, ninth to Harv. Like you mentioned, both him and Tom have had an incredible race, getting some points for their team. Almond in 11th place, so close to getting some points, starting from 20th on the grid, missing a lot of the carnage at the start. Choco in 12th, 13th to Justin, 14th to Dodo, Kevar in 15th, and Pat Ledger in 16th with Finn, unfortunately, crashing out late on. He does get classified there. Magician, Maris, and Andrea, those guys crashed out earlier on, unfortunately, on their side as well. But we will wait and see, and if anyone will join us to have a chat, have a bit of a podium question. It would be great to hear from any of those drivers because they've all. I mean, Otis. I wonder what he would have thought when he got that 5-second time penalty, because you were quite rightly saying at the time, is either going to hold him up, be a bit of a pain, and then towards the end of the race, who knows what could have happened if that happened, if Scyther decided to stay out. But you were quite right in what you were saying.
Yeah, to be fair, I made the initial call that I thought Scyther probably should have stayed. And you know what? I think to a certain degree, he probably still should have done, because I think he might have been able to put a little bit of pressure on Otis to potentially take a race victory out of him. But in the end, they are thinking about their own race. They're all thinking about their own team and how they do. And obviously, Visceral, what happened to them? I honestly think that the incident with Choco in qualifying, they've not really been able to rebound from, because in the end, neither of the drivers scored points. Of course, one of them crashed out of the race. The other person was outside of the points. So in the end, VSR, outside of their sort of usual spectrum of let's keep it close and let's keep it consistent, because as soon as they made that one mistake, that consistency out of the window, they were gone. And a quick correction, by the way, I was mentioning, because I've got all of the tables obviously on my phone and they keep it clear. I've been reliably informed ETA are no longer part of this tournament, and actually it was FRT that was racing in the Alfa Romeos in the end on their first race, getting a double points finish, for that team is a cracking result for FRT. So it's awesome to see them in this tournament racing so well and getting that. So really, really good work from the Future Racing team in that one. So big thank you as well to Jack Taylor, by the way, who just corrected me on that one. Did not know that they were part of this tournament.
Thank you very much, Jack. Much appreciated for the info, because I was going off that as well. Very, very interesting to see how that all that panned out, that race. To be honest, it was a cracker of one, because Belgiums can sometimes be a little bit DRS train like and not getting much action out of it. But and it's a bit harsh to say, but that incident at the start, obviously with Sider being tagged, you don't want to see it, but that helped spice things up a little bit, because Sider was just flying through the field to try and make amends for someone else's mistake. And then we had a big crash going up Eau Rouge and Radeon, which we barely saw because of the action, people trying to swap positions up front.
Yeah, and that took Bunga Racing Team out of the equation as well. So that ended up sort of leaving the midfield wide open for FGE to just swallow up a good chunk of points. And now, obviously, Halo's performance, taking out what the driver of the day performance that is given, from the game, Halo has got to be in that discussion, because he has been phenomenal in this race to have what has clearly been a lower downforce setup, because he was so quick, even without ERS, he was so quick down the straights, and yet he was able to keep up with everyone else. What a magnificent drive, and what a magnificent driver as well. FG are going to have to work the hardest to keep him in the team, because they could slowly gain up the rankings, and especially if they keep outscoring ERL, they're going to be a team that some drivers have maybe flocked to,
I mean, we thought maybe he was out of position from qualifying because of the rain, because of what was going on. I don't think he was. I think his pace was true tonight, and it's great to see.
No, absolutely. I mean, I don't want to say that we discredited him, because, he raced really, really well in qualifying, and obviously raced generally as well. So we knew that he'd be in the mix. But one thing that I didn't think would happen was that he'd be racing for a podium. And I think not pitting that one lap earlier definitely put them in a position where I think they were out of the sort of chance of being able to get that podium, especially when you've got PSR and FRA, in front of him. At the end of it, he got the best of the rest by a country mile, and I think he's got to be in that mix and that discussion for the driver of the day within the sort of Discord, if you will, within the sort of discussion. They were fantastic to watch.
It was brilliant, and that helps FGE get through past Bunga, get closer to Velox, because obviously they're not here anymore, but you want that prestige like we've spoken about earlier. But yeah, it's a shame. I don't think we're going to see any of the guys for a podium interview tonight. So it's just the two of us. I guess final words from you, Jota, because I don't think there's much left.
Not much left to discuss from that one, really, to be fair. We ended up having a really intense qualifying session that was mixed up with all of that sort of wet weather. At the end of it, as to be expected, the world champion ran away with it and decided that he wants to run his own races. 9 out of 10 race wins now, of course. Every single race ended with a podium so far. But it is that discussion of that midfield at the moment. FGE looking like to be one of those best of the rest tournament contenders. But where are VSR going to come from this is going to be the question, because they have been the consistent team throughout the season and throughout all of the tournaments as well. This is going to be a big kick in the teeth for them.
It's a very, very good question to ask, and to be honest, I don't think we'll find out until the final race of the season. And just one last time on the calendar, United States next time out on the 18th of November. Then we've got a little bit of a break before we come back to Canada, Brazil, which will be the final sprint race, and Miami. And just to remind you, obviously, There is only one drivers' champion this time, ever, really, and that man is Otis Lawrence. He's been absolutely phenomenal. From myself and Jota, it's been incredible to have you watch in. I hope you've rewatched and see all the action that take place and pick apart a few bits of what happened in the race. But for now, I think we will be... Jota, what's your schedule for WR next week? Is it tier 2 or 3?
Back on tier 2 duties on Tuesdays.
So Jota, the incredible Jota, will be back. WR tier 2 on Tuesday. I will be tier 1 on Monday, maybe with Steve or with one of the Ryan .0s. I'm not sure which one I will have, but it will be great nonetheless. But thank you so much for watching, and we'll catch you soon.